Okay, everybody, welcome to Chapter 5. This is our T251 and Chapter 5 in your radiation protection book. And this is on radiation monitoring. Okay, so monitoring your personal exposure. This is for people who are working in a radiated environment. We have personnel dosimetry. This is monitoring of radiation exposure to any person occupationally exposed on a regular basis. The radiation exposure levels are kept well below annual effective dose limits. That's why we monitor, to keep them there, and to create awareness of various radiation exposure monitoring devices and their functions. Okay. Radiation badges, monitors, whatever you want to call them, are required whenever a radiation worker is likely to risk receiving 10% or more in their annual occupational limit, their effective dose of 50 millisieverts, that's 5 rems, in any single year, okay, from work-related activities. So in keeping with ALERA, most healthcare facilities issue dosimetry badges to personnel who could receive approximately 1% of the annual effective dose limit in any month, okay, which is approximately 0.04 millisieverts. Okay, and the reason for that is if something comes back high, they can work at it before you've reached your maximum annual limit, which means you don't get to work in the environment anymore. Okay? Okay, the purpose of a personnel dosimeter provides an indication of the working habits and working conditions of personnel. It determines occupational exposure by detecting and measuring the quantity of ionizing radiation to which the dosimeter has been exposed over a period of time, but it does not protect the wearer from exposure, you guys. It's only an instrument to gauge what you're already doing, what you're already receiving. During routine computed radiography and digital radiography, when a protective apron is not being worn, primary personnel dosimetry should be on your collar, on the collar level. I see tons of people put it on their lanyard, so it's hanging down by their badge, which is at their waist. That is not the correct positioning for a dosimetry badge. Okay, it needs to be at the collar to monitor your thyroid head-neck level. Okay, if you're wearing an apron in a fluoro unit or in an x-ray room, or in operations, your dosimetry badge will be worn at collar level still, but on the outside of your apron. Okay, it does not go underneath. It needs to be on the outside of your apron, and that's due to because your head, neck, thyroid, lenses of your eyes, they receive 10 to 20 times more exposure than your trunk. Okay, so we need to know what that dose is. Okay. The badge gives the equivalent dose to the thyroid gland in the eyes of occupationally exposed people and ensures a minimal reading under the apron. Okay? When a protective apron is worn, the first or primary dosimetry badge is worn outside at collar. If you have a second one, and some people that work in IR departments do, then you would wear it underneath your apron. Lead typically is half a millimeter thick on aprons, and this shows that it's actually doing its job. Okay. Also, there's an extra badge for anyone who is a pregnant radiographer. Okay, so the primary badge is still worn at the collar level for head, neck, and thyroid dosage. The second monitoring device would be worn at your abdomen level. That's going to monitor any dose that the fetus is being exposed to. Okay, it will be worn under lead and at the abdominal level during any fluoro procedures. Although when you're pregnant, make sure that if there's another tech that can take your place, that's what you want to do. Okay, the extremity dosimeters, we don't usually use those in general radiography. That's more of a PET CT thing. It could be a surgeon who does a lot of hands surgery and they use the C-arm a lot, something like that. Okay, but we normally do not use extremity dosimeters, but they look like a little ring, just like this, that has your information. A record of radiation exposure, it's going to be part of your employment record at all times. Okay, when you go to a different employer, different company, they're going to add to your record. So it's always kept track since day one as a radiographer or student radiographer in your case. Okay. The occupational exposure values for a typical year are in table 5-1 in your book. It's page 78 though, not 86. Sorry about that. Okay, and all these values represent the average annual effective dose to your whole body. This is what the table looks like in 5-1. This is data that has been consolidated from the NCRP, that's the National Council on Radiation Protection and Measurements, okay? It gives you columns of the number of workers, their annual effective dose in millisieverts, and their collective effective dose in their person sieverts. So remember, the collective effective dose is equal to the sum of all of the doses times the number of individuals exposed. It's expressed in person sieverts, SI units. Okay, personal dosimeters. We're going to go over their characteristics. They're lightweight and easy to carry. They're made of materials that are durable enough to tolerate normal daily use. They're not going to break, things like that. Able to detect and record both small and large exposures in a consistent and reliable manner. We don't want to have to second guess what the results are. Outside influences should not affect performance of the instrument. Things like leaving them in your car in the heat, leaving them on the dashboard in the sunshine, that should not affect these things. Washing them in the washing machine should be reasonably inexpensive to purchase and maintain. And as you know, if they wouldn't be, we wouldn't be using them. Everything's run by numbers. And that permits healthcare facilities to use large numbers of monitors in a cost-effective manner. Okay, the devices currently available to us are the OSL, which is an optically stimulated luminescence dosimeter, film badges, which are old school, but they're still around, TLDs, pocket ionization chambers, type of personnel dosimetry used to measure exposure of the hands, those are the rings. They're TLD ring batches and DIS dosimeters. Those measure hands. We're not going to really deal with those. We don't use those in our field. Your specific dosimeter that we use, this InstaDose, is pretty neat. It's a direct ion storage technology. It allows access online immediately. Okay, you don't have to send your badges off to a processing center. You don't have to wait for the results. That's very cool. It is a hybrid of the technology and the latest advances in data storage, and it uses a metal oxide semiconductor. Okay, we're going to go over use, the components that make up these things, the sensitivity, advantages and disadvantages. The OSL, this is the most common type of dosimeter you're going to see out there in the radiology field. There is a picture of it. Let me just go through the slides here. This is an OSL. Okay, you have all seen your techs that you work with wearing these types of badges. Notice that they come in many layers. There's many different layers here to this thing underneath this pretty colored badge. Okay, and then it's enclosed in 2 clips of plastic that are sealed together. All right, okay. It contains aluminum oxide as the detector. It's read out by using a laser light at a certain frequency, actually 3 different frequencies, because there's a way to measure 3 different types or frequencies of radiation. It's worn for a period of 1 to 3 months. Unfortunately, is shipped to a monitoring company to read it. It's made of 3 different filters, aluminum, tin, and copper. The good thing about this, very, very sensitive, can give accurate readings as low as 10 microsieverts, that's good, or 1 millirem for X-ray and gamma photons, okay? That's energies ranging from 5 kiloelectron volts to greater than 40 mega electron volts. It's more sensitive than the TLD, can read up to 1,000 rems or 10 sieverts. Its increased sensitivity makes it ideal for monitoring employers in a low radiation environment and for pregnant workers. And the OSL provides a control monitor that helps ensure accurate readings. Okay, so the control is a badge that comes with all the other badges, and it's put in a safe spot. Nobody wears it. It just stays in a safe spot away from radiation. And then when you collect all your other badges, when at the end of the 1 to 3 month period, whatever your site decides to do, You put the control in there, and then that's how they know what to gauge your dosage of that group of badges against. Okay, the advantages of those OSLs: lightweight, durable, easy to carry. It's preloaded packet. Easy identification, your name is right on it. It is not affected by heat, moisture, pressure. Offers complete reanalysis if an error occurs. It's increased sensitivity to radiation. Remember, it's down to micron sieverts. Can be worn for a longer period of time if necessary, up to a year, but I have never seen that practice. It's usually 1 to 3 months. The disadvantages to the OSLs: only records in the body area where it's worn. So at this point, it's going to be our thyroid level, collar level. Exposure cannot be determined on the day of the exposure. You got to send it out. Not efficient means if it is not worn at all times. And we all know that sometimes people forget, but try not to forget these badges are important, okay? This is, like I said, the disassembled one where it shows you the different layers, okay, and the different filters that are in there. The film badge, people still wear regular films that's got a piece of film in there. They're economical. They can be used in a cost-effective manner. They record whole body radiation exposure accumulated at a low rate over a long period of time. They are composed of 3 parts: a lightweight plastic film holder, an assortment of metal filters, either copper or aluminum, and a film packet. This is how we read film badges. They're made from radiation dosimetry film, like a dental film, and a dosimeter is used to measure the density on the film. Okay, it measures optical density. The control badge is used to serve as a comparison with the remaining film badges. So same thing, they've got a separate one that they keep in a safe spot. The advantages: it provides a longer permanent legal record of personnel exposure. It's economical. It's cost effective. It can monitor X-rays and gamma rays, and it's mechanical integrity. Disadvantages: the temperature and humidity mess these up, okay? So it'll cause fogging on the film. It can ruin it altogether, and you don't get to use it to take a reading. The exposure cannot be determined on the date of the occurrence. It needs to be shipped out. It's only worn for 1 month at a time. Not as sensitive to low levels of radiation. The most sensitive needs to be 50 kilielectron volts or higher. Okay, this is an example of a film badge. The film's inside this plastic holder. Okay, TLDs, thermoluminescent dosimeters. It's a light-free device that contains a crystalline form of lithium fluoride. It functions as the sensing material measured by a TLD analyzer that accounts for the amount of ionizing radiation that you've been exposed to, and that's used by the crystals, okay? The advantages of these: determines dose more accurately than film badge, can record exposures as low as 5 milliradians, not affected by humidity, pressure, and normal temp changes, may be worn up to 3 months, can be reused once the crystal is reheated. This is what one of the TLDs could look like. Okay, the next one is a pocket ionization chamber. These are not seen in our departments very much. They're very expensive, but they are used as a type of personal dosimeter. They look like a little fountain pen in your pocket. There's 2 types. There's self-reading and non-self-reading. They read exposures from 0 to 200 milliradians, and they use electrical charge to get your reading. Okay, advantages and disadvantages of the pocket dosimeter. You can read up on those. Okay, pocket ionization chamber. This is what a physicist is going to use to calibrate your equipment on site. The types of those: survey instruments are going to be gas-filled radiation survey instruments, a QT pi survey meter, a proportional counter, and a Geiger counter, which you have all heard of. These are the monitoring requirements, and what happens is medical physicists use ionization chambers connected to electrometers to perform the annual standard measurements required by state, federal, healthcare accreditation organizations, okay? So they are responsible for keeping our departments in compliance, and these are some of the equipment that they have to use, okay? All right, so that's it for Chapter 5. You just need to know the types and some of the disadvantages and advantages to your badges, okay? And please get familiar with how you read the reports, and we'll go over that